let's start with Gina Gillespie. Gina is a vice president and financial consultant based in Burlington, Massachusetts. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you, Lorna.
And then Jasmine Conyers. Jasmine joins us on the regular as well, and she is a workplace financial consultant, and you're based in Westlake, Texas, which is awesome. So we've got some nice country coverage. And we're so thrilled to have all of you here today with us. We actually have covered this Roth topic before, call it All About the Roth. And given the many, many questions that we continue to receive and the suggestions to cover it even more deeply, we figured that we would do it again and make sure we could get to all of your needs and questions. Before we do that, I just have a few housekeeping topics I want to hit on. First, as usual, we have the chat open. Please submit your questions and vote up the ones that are most relevant to you so we can bring them in during the conversation. Second, in the chat, if we can't get to those questions, we've got an awesome team of financial consultants that are answering your questions by the minute. So they're back there helping out as well. And I also want to thank them. Another housekeeping, just because many of you ask, we throughout the presentation do pin links to what we refer to so that you can have access to them. You also can download them on the bottom of your screen. And I know many of you ask about that, so I wanted to remind you at the top of the hour. Please, you'll see the note in the chat. We really want to make sure that no one provides any of their personal information because it is something that is available and many can see. And we just want to make sure that that stays private to you. So of course your names are in there if you've submitted them, but nothing beyond that. Thank you. We appreciate that. And last but not least, we always get asked, is this going to be recorded? Where can I find previous recordings? And I just wanted to highlight that Women Talk Money is on YouTube. So join us there and you can see all of our past discussions, as well as we try to get our latest discussions out as quickly as possible. So I think that's it for all the announcements and the housekeeping, and we are ready to dive in. I see the chat is already off the hook, which excites me, and such great questions. Where I want to start is really just kind of at the basic level, because we've got people who are coming from all different understandings of the Roth. And so let me come over to you, Gina. Let's just start with something very basic. Can you talk about the Roth and why is it so popular? Because it is such a popular topic for us.
Definitely. So I'm going to take a quick step back and just the first thing when people think of Roth, I think they think of an IRA, which stands for an individual retirement account. So I want to talk a little bit about the different types of accounts. And so there's two different main IRAs, just to take a quick step back. It's a Roth and a traditional IRA. And I use IRA as an example to help you understand the differences between these two types of accounts. So look right here in front of us. And the Roth IRA is one that we put in post-tax contributions. So oftentimes when you think this is money we pay taxes on as you contribute into your account right now. When you hear tax-free, it means the taxes are paid on the contributions. And then when you take money out, it may be paid, you don't have to pay the taxes later when you withdraw it out. And then we have tax-deferred growth on a traditional IRA. We put in pre-tax contributions, and you pay taxes when you withdraw the money later on all the money that you put in, plus any of the growth that you potentially can have over time too. So just to kind of take that quick step back, Roth's become very popular because it's this ability to understand kind of a different way that taxes can be paid. And I love this chart right in front of us because it helps us to see the big differences between tax-free growth and tax-deferred growth.
Very helpful level setting. And I think one of the most important things for us to understand the difference. I also know that there are a couple different type of Roths beyond the Roth IRA. Jasmine, can you just walk through those with us as a number of folks are asking about all the different types?
Yes, absolutely. So there's also a Roth 401k account, which is becoming a lot more common upon major employers. So ultimately, whenever you're contributing to your 401k plan, you'll have the option to contribute either pre-tax or Roth. Now, just keep in mind, every 401k plan is designed very differently. So it's really important to ensure that you're understanding what's available to you. And ultimately, you can decide, when do you want to pay the taxes, either now or later. And also now there's something called a Roth IRA for children. So you can help any of the children in your life, whether it's your daughter, your son, your niece, or your nephew, whoever, but help them with saving for the future tax-free. And I like to think of it, it's a way to supercharge their retirement. But we will talk a little bit later about kind of what those options look like here.
Very, very helpful. Gina, I want to come back to you. Carrie asked a question just about what are the other differences between a traditional retirement account, IRA, and a Roth account. I know you highlighted taxes, but I know there's a
Yeah.
few more if you could take us through those.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So one of the differences that you can also look at and understand. So I'll talk a little bit about IRAs, and then I'm also going to talk about and add on to what Jasmine had said about employer-based plans. So one of the biggest differences is contribution limits. So a traditional and a Roth IRA both have the same contribution limits of $7,000 per year this year in 2024 if you're under age 50. And if you're over age 50, you get a catch up of $1,000. So it allows you to add an additional $1,000. But it's not to each plan. And that's one thing I know that sometimes can be confusing. You can't add 8,000 or 7,000 to a Roth and a traditional. It's one or the other. So it's not in each, it's across, I guess a good way to say it, across both accounts. Then there's custodial IRA for kids that Jasmine just mentioned. And I'll explain the differences and the contribution limits there in a moment. We'll do that a little bit later, but there's also income requirements. So when you have a Roth IRA and a traditional Roth IRA, as well as a traditional IRA, Roth IRA and a traditional, there's income limitations. And income limitations may inhibit you from being able to even add money or deduct, get a tax deduction. So an employer-based 401k plan, there is no income limitations or requirements. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility if we're looking at ways to save efficiently. So I always like to think about also the last piece is withdrawal requirements. So a Roth IRA does not have required withdrawals later in life. It's an account that you can allow to grow, and you can just allow it to sit there and not have to take out any distributions at any time. You can, but you don't have to. With a traditional IRA, generally we have to look at things called required minimum distributions. Those start anywhere between 70 and a half. Secure Act 2.0 changed those ages. It could be 73 or 75 for you on this call. So just know there's timeframes in the future that you have to take distributions. And generally it's the same thing on a 401k plan. There can be some differences. But when I look at this, I think the biggest things are contribution limits, as well as income requirements, and then how you take when you have to take distributions later.
Helpful. Katie, Karen, others in the chat trying to figure out, and there's a whole bunch of different iterations, but how do they know which account type is best for them? Gina, can I come right back to you?
Yeah. I would always just take a step back and say, call us. We can help to understand your specific situation. I wish there was just an easy, quick answer, but there could be just very nuances or differences that make something maybe appropriate for one person than another. But I'll try to help you a little bit with the Roth IRA and traditional when it comes to contribution limits and eligibility, because that can be one piece. So we look at this and we say, what's your income and your tax filing status? And this allows us to look at contribution amounts or limits. So you can see in front of us, single individuals, married individuals filing jointly, or married individuals filing separately, all have different modified adjusted gross income limitations. This kind of tells us, can we contribute to each of these buckets right off the bat? And can we do a full contribution? Can we do just a partial contribution? Or are we not eligible at all? So just really quickly, I'll share single individuals. If you make less than 146,000 of adjusted gross income, so that's after deductions for taxes, you can contribute $7,000 or $8,000 depending on your age, right? Under age 50 or over, to the Roth IRA. And if you're in between those 146,000, 161,000, you can do a partial contribution, and then over 161,000, you're not even eligible. So one comment can be, well, which one's best for me? Well, first, are we eligible to do any of these? I always like to look at this. Fidelity has an IRA contribution calculator. I love to use things online. A lot of the tools that we use are really simple and easy to use. So you can go online and look to see, am I eligible there? And then I always recommend, if it's complex, your situation has more complexities, we can talk to a tax advisor as well, and they can help us. I think a big thing to think about when we think about tax brackets is, what tax bracket are we in now? Where will we be like when we get to retirement, where will we be? And if we know or think we might be in a higher tax bracket in retirement, then a Roth IRA or even a Roth 401k may make a lot of sense. So I look at that kind of piece too, as to be kind of a way to kind of decide, should I do one or the other. But I always think the best thing, Lorna, is to talk to someone about your specific situation, because there could be nuances that help us to really say one could be better than another.
Absolutely. And if I can add in here, there are different withdrawal rules that you'll want to take into consideration when it comes to these different types of accounts. Gina did mention something earlier called required minimum distribution, or to RMDs. And ultimately, it's an IRA specific rule that does require that you start withdrawing money at a certain age from those tax deferred accounts starting each year. So with Roth IRAs, most times for the original owner, there are not any required minimum distributions. And also, as far as qualified withdrawals, there are certain stipulations as to why you can receive some of this money early. So you can receive the money tax and penalty free if you're a first-time home buyer up to the first 10,000, or if death or disability does occur. So those are the two things to keep in mind. But ultimately, when it comes to Roth IRA, contributions can be withdrawn without taxes or penalties at any time. So once again, there are lots of nuances. Ultimately, if you need help with understanding exactly what that looks like, feel free to give us a call, and we're more than happy to help with walking through all of those different options. And also, most importantly, please reach out to a tax advisor for help as well.
Thank you, Jasmine. I just want to make sure we repeat it, because a lot of questions on the 5-year waiting period. Can you just kind of hit on the application of the 5-year waiting period and what that means?
Absolutely. So in order to receive tax-free funds from your Roth IRA, there are two special requirements that are required here. So first, ensuring that that money has been invested for at least 5 years, and also to ensure that you've reached over the age of 59 and a half. So you have to meet those two requirements in order to receive those funds tax-free. But once again, the qualified withdrawal, so the reasons why you're able to take that money out beforehand, it's one of the three that I did list earlier. So first time home buyer, disability, or if death does occur.
Nailed it, because that's hitting a lot of the questions that people had. So thank you. We're getting a few scenarios of people in different situations. And so I want to broaden it. And Gina, maybe I'll come over to you. We've got someone that's interested in investing in a Roth, but really the question, is it too late? So assume this person is between 2 to 5 years away from retirement. They want to take advantage of these benefits, but what should they do? And should someone be putting their money, extra contributions, into their 401k or a similar type of workplace plan, or is it make sense for a Roth IRA?
That's a great question, Lorna. And I know I keep saying this, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I always say every situation is unique and specific. I'm going to give some examples of when it can make sense and maybe when it doesn't. Maybe that'll be helpful. So if you have, as we're looking 2 to 5 years from retirement, your situation may be different than someone else's. And it may make sense to contribute into that Roth because you were just putting it into a savings account, and maybe you already have enough in your savings account. Maybe it's more of long-term money. And when I look at adding money, the time frame may not be as important as what's the goals of those funds and do you need them? So Jasmine, to piggyback off what Jasmine said, we have to wait 5 years when we look at opening that Roth and that contribution. So that 5-year time frame can be important, but if you don't need the money, so Lorna, if that individual that wrote that question has other funds to access, or it's money that's more long-term, they don't need it, the Roth can be great because we can put it in this bucket of money and just allow it to grow over time. Maybe they have goals and wishes to leave money to their heirs, could be children or people that they love. The Roth is a great way to do that as well. So a big part, I always look at it, that the timing of if that 2 to 5 years from retirement may not be as critical as what are the goals for those funds. Do you have other money to touch, right? And if you do, maybe that it's a really great way to add money to account that we don't have any requirements to take distributions and we won't have to pay taxes on it. We can allow it to grow tax-free. So I think a big part for answering this question is, hey, always consult our tax advisor if there's really hard, kind of conversations and questions around this. But it's great to have conversations with advisors like myself, because I think a big part of why we sit down and talk through this is to really get a better feel of your situation, the goals, the end goals of the money. The Roth is a great place to put it. The 401k may be a great place because your income limitations, like we talked about before. So an IRA is nice if you don't have those income limitations, where a 401k is also a great place to put it if you have those income limitations. I hope that answers the question, Lorna, but.
It very much answers the question. And thank you for reminding folks to reach out. And I am not someone who's doing this every day over and over, working with people one-to-one, but I know that you both and so many like you are having this conversation and helping people figure it out. And I think taking advantage of that free help and guidance is really important to feel like you're making the right decision. I also know I talk to so many women and they talk about, and I feel this way too, you feel like when you're going to retire, you need all of your money at once versus the potential of our longevity, where we could have another 20, 30 more years in retirement. And so there's opportunity with making the right move to get the greatest potential growth. So I think I appreciate it. In the chat, we did pin the phone number to give us a call just so that you have easy access to that. So Jasmine, I'm going to come over to you with the popular question that comes in so many times within this chat, and one that we always get, which is around a Roth conversion. So what is a Roth conversion and why would you do it?
Absolutely, really great question. So Roth conversion is when you take money that's in a traditional IRA or 401k and you convert it into a Roth IRA. Really what that means is that you're taking money from a pre-tax account and placing it in a post-tax account, which will result in you paying taxes on the money that you did convert in that year. Now, there are three main reasons as to why one may do that. The first is, number one, you may be over the income limit in order to directly contribute to a Roth IRA. As Gina did mention, that happens for a lot of clients that we work with. This is also referred to as a backdoor Roth. Or there's an option to take advantage of a mega backdoor Roth. Once again, this allows for someone who kind of has that income restriction and you're unable to directly contribute. It still gives you the benefit of having a Roth account. The second is you've reached the maximum to contribute to your Roth for the year. As we did mention earlier, Gina went over the limits for 2024. If you're underneath the age of 50, it's a total of $7,000. Over 50, it's a total of $8,000. And finally, this does give you the ability to manage your taxes in retirement, which is a very, very pertinent conversation that Gina's probably having with a lot of individuals on the daily. Now, keep in mind, there are still total limits when it comes to contributing to both a 401k and IRA, two separate limits, so just keep that in mind, but there is not a limit on how much that you're able to convert over every single year. Once again, I would encourage that you reach out to a tax advisor just so that you can understand the tax implications whenever you are converting money from pre-tax to post-tax accounts.
Really important point, so thank you. And very, very helpful. But I think, the next question that comes out is like, how do I know when it makes sense for me to potentially think about doing a Roth conversion? Gina, I'm going to throw that one over to you.
It's a question I talk about all the time, Lorna, so this is perfect. There's not one answer, so that's why I talk about it all the time, because clients will read publications or things and wonder, where do I fit? So it really depends on a lot of different factors. So I'll share with you what those are, and maybe it can help us all to figure out where we might fit, and then again, talk to one of us. So no matter your situation, the 5-year waiting period that Jasmine mentioned is really important. So consider, do I need the money before the 5-year waiting period is up to avoid the penalty fee for withdrawing? So a quick example, do you have enough in a savings account? Do you have enough in a non-retirement account? Do you have enough, maybe even we're doing this on top of other withdrawals we could take from our IRA or, pre-tax money, but do we have other accounts to live off of? Really, that's the question. If you have 5 years or more before you'll need them funds, a conversion could make sense. So I think one of the things, if you all are saving for retirement, one of the biggest things that we always talk through is having a diversified set of investments always, and then a diversified set of types of accounts you save in. So retirement, non-retirement, and Roth. Some other things to consider that I always think is important. You want to do a Roth conversion, there's a deadline, and it's December 31st. So you have to do the submission of pre-tax to Roth before December 31st, and at Fidelity it's 4 p.m. So I think one of the things to think through is just make sure that if you're cognizant of this and this is something you want to do, you have to do it before the end of the year. There's also no do-overs, or they call it mulligans. On the side, sometimes I golf and I like those do-overs. So think about with a Roth, there's no do-over. So once your conversion is complete, it can't be reversed. So make sure you understand if it makes the most sense. So oftentimes, maybe you thought I would be in a lower tax year and then realized there was something that happened in your situation that caused a higher tax situation. Maybe if you want to take it back, you can't take it back. So once you move money from pre-tax to Roth, we'll have to pay taxes in that tax year. So, which kind of falls in suit with the idea that the tax bill is due. So the year that you convert, so you need to plan for taxes. Many people may move money pre-tax to Roth and not withhold any taxes. They'll just pay with other money that they have outside of that. So when you think about how you move it from one place to another, that's always another big question, Lauren. At Fidelity, we make it really simple and easy. If we're looking at IRAs, you can pick up assets or investments that you have and just move them from the pre-tax IRA to the Roth IRA. And the way we look at what's the value of that conversion, it's the closing market price on the day of those investments. You could also move cash that you have, or money market, or assets that aren't invested that fluctuate in value from a pre-tax to a Roth. And then if you are of required minimum distribution age, this is always a big question, Lorna, so I'll end with this piece. So if you have to take required minimum distributions, you first have to take that required minimum distribution before doing a Roth conversion. And you can't move your required distribution right into a Roth. So remember, when it comes to those conversions, just make sure that if you have other questions, a tax advisor is a great person to consult if you're concerned about any of the things I just listed.
And I would say it sounds like you have this conversation about the RMD and just really making sure people are thinking through it on the regular. So thank you, because that's an important watch out or understand what you need to
And
do.
it was a lot, Lauren, I know, but I think one of the things I guess it could come down to is there's a lot to think about. So
yeah, very much so, which is why both of you walking through this and using such plain speak for someone like me that is not having this conversation every day and understanding it, we all really appreciate it. I want to keep on going because a number of questions, and they're popping to the top, have come right back in. And Jasmine, you mentioned this before around the mega backdoor Roth conversion, but can we just take some time? Let's talk about, again, what is a mega backdoor Roth conversion? Is it the same as a backdoor Roth conversion? And then people tactically want to know, how can I set that up? I know that's a biggie, but if you can cover that, that would be great.
Absolutely. So first, let's start with, they're both conversion strategies, but the way that you go about doing so very differently. So a backdoor Roth just simply means that you're moving money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, which most times institutions would be able to help you with that process. And a mega backdoor Roth is when you move funds from a certain type of 401k or workplace plan into a Roth. Now, this can be done you can move the mega backdoor Roth into a Roth IRA, or you can move it into a Roth 401k. And so if you're moving it inside of your 401k from pre-tax to Roth, oftentimes that's called an in-plan conversion. So you'd want to double check with your 401k provider to ensure that this is actually a process that you can move forward with. And it's the same thing with moving money from a pre-tax 401k to a Roth IRA. You have to ensure that you actually have the eligibility to do so. So once again, it is plan specific. Ultimately, both options are available to anyone who may be over the income limit in order to directly contribute to the Roth. So it's just another way that you can increase those after-tax assets and retirement. So kind of that tax diversity, as Gina did mention earlier. So once again, just reach out to us to ensure that you understand what those processes looks like, because it can be very different and there may be some limitations based upon the type of employer plan that you are involved in. So hopefully that clears up the confusion there.
Definitely clears it up. It's great to have so many options, but it does make it more complex when someone like me is not doing this every day. And to add on to it, Gina, I've got Tina asked a question around the Roth conversion and what's the difference between a Roth conversion? Is it the same thing as a Roth rollover? Can you help clarify that one for us?
Yes, definitely. It sounds, if you're listening, it sounds so similar, but they are different. So let's talk about it. So a Roth conversion, and I'll just state it again because I think it's important to talk about what it is. It's moving funds from a pre-tax account, like a 401k or a traditional IRA, a rollover IRA, into a post-tax account, the Roth IRA. So you'll pay taxes when you move it. So it goes pre-tax to post-tax. So a Roth rollover, though, so let's talk about what that is now. It's moving after tax funds, which means you've already paid taxes on those contributions. So example, moving funds from a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA. You don't have to pay taxes on that kind of component or piece. I'll throw in one other extra thing. So the Secure Act 2.0 also gave a change to unused 529 assets. So if you have assets in a college savings plan 529, you can now transfer up to, it's a lifetime limit right now of $35,000 total from a 529 account to a Roth IRA, tax and penalty free. So if you had unused dollars, and there's some other rules to follow, you have to have it open for 15 years or more. So when you look, they allow you to move those contribution limits each year up to $35,000 total. And I think that's just another way to think about maybe some assets that you could get into a Roth. So again, Roth conversion, there's the Roth rollover, which is different. And then I just throw in this other Secure Act 2.0 where you can take unused 529 assets and get it in a Roth.
I'm glad you threw in the Secure Act 2.0. And the reason maybe it's very relevant to me, but as someone with a few college kids or always worrying, we never know what we're going to do if we try to help them at all. Just knowing that there's some potential flexibility, just in case there's unused these days. That's tough, but it's good to know. So some questions coming in about the Roth. Are there penalties for over contributing to a Roth or for contributing to a Roth when you're over the income limits, which I know, intentionally we're trying to follow the rules, but these things can happen. Jasmine, can you help out with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Things happen. So in either instance, if you over contribute to your Roth or if you've reached over the income requirements, there aren't any immediate penalties or fees or anything like that. You can simply just remove the contributions from the account, but it's very important that you're doing so before the tax filing date. So for instance, you can move the additional assets to either traditional IRA, brokerage account, but ultimately, if you leave the excess contributions in your account, they can be subject to a 6% excise tax for each year that they remain in your account. So all in all, if it's something that does happen, please ensure that you're moving those assets so that you can avoid that 6% excise tax.
Thank you. So age-old question, we see so many people do it. Gina, I want to come over to you. So when we're opening up a Roth account, a number of questions on do we just contribute? What are the next steps? And I know we see a lot of people sometimes not actually investing. Can you kind of talk about what those steps are and why they're so important?
Yeah, definitely. So the Roth IRA or an IRA or any account really is just the vessel, right? And then we think about what's the purpose or the goal of that account. And is it money that we want to keep in cash or is it money that we want to invest? So a common mistake I always see with individuals is that they'll invest those contributions, which is great. It's a great first step. And then we may stop there. So it's great with a Roth IRA or accounts that you don't need to utilize anytime right now, or even, it could be an account that you're going to use over time, that we invest those dollars. The potential for the growth that we get when we have long-term investing, And I always say this, Lorna, that the market or the investments can fluctuate, right? Our wealth in the account can fluctuate and go up and down. But over time, if we have invested $10,000 in US stocks 30 years ago, you'll see that you'll have $168,605 today. You can see in the chart right here versus $20,020 if you kept it and just collect a little interest on the money as a cash equivalent, right? Just a money market or a cash account. The difference between those two is $148,000. So I know oftentimes it doesn't just apply to the Roth. I say, hey, one of the things we can see as investors is it's important to save, but what do we do with those dollars and make sure we can invest them? I always emphasize this as being important because I think one thing that we see as women is that we're really great savers, but if we don't know what to do with it, we might just leave it there or might be concerned that maybe we're not making the right decision. But just know that the Roth is a great type of account when we think about investing it because that growth comes out tax-free later. So it's one of those bigger things that we think about that, hey, if this is a longer term account, make sure that we think about the investment piece too. Always come in, you can talk to one of our investment professionals like myself, and we can help you figure out the right type of investment, right, for you, one that feels comfortable, you're comfortable with. And Fidelity does sweep uninvested funds into a money market at least. So today, if you have that in an IRA or not, a non-retirement or a Roth account, at least we're getting some interest or earnings if it's there. But just remember, we could get potentially a lot more earnings growth if we invest it over time. So contributing is great. I think investing can really help us to grow our wealth over time.
Absolutely. If I can add in here at Fidelity, we make it super easy to ensure that you are taking that next best step to invest your funds. So a few ways that you can do so. The first is you can open a DIY or do-it-yourself Roth account where it's your responsibility to choose the investments and to manage it over time. Ultimately, you do not have to be a stock picker. And so if for any instance you are needing more help and you're just kind of needing that extra push, you can always open a Fidelity Go Roth IRA. So that allows for you to take advantage of a robo or a digital advisor to manage the investment for you. Ultimately, there's so many different options that we have here at Fidelity to help you with managing your money. As Gina did mention, give us a call. We want to really understand your situation and ensure that you're in a suitable investment that's best for you long term.
Thank you for covering that and those options. I'm going to keep on taking questions from the chat and those that are most voted up, and we might have be repeating a little bit, but I think it's so important. Gina, I'll start with you because I just went to Jasmine, and Catherine asked, I'm getting closer to retirement. Presently, I have a 401k. How difficult would it be to transfer to a Roth? And what kind of Roth is best?
So it's a great question. I think first step, and Jasmine, we always had talked about this before, in a workplace plan, they may have the ability to do an in-plan conversion. So you might be able to move potentially some of those dollars into a Roth. If they don't, or if we want different investment choices or different options, we can also move to a Roth IRA as well. Really, we call up the 401k or for whoever has our plan provider to ask the rules of those plans to understand. So it's pretty simple, the actual function of it, but we just want to make sure the rules of the plan, if they allow us to do those in-plan conversions, or it may make sense to put it into an IRA because you have other investment choices or options, or there's more things that you're looking for. There's a whole list of differences. So I always kind of call up that 401k provider to ask what the options are that they provide first. It's not one size fits all in the sense, I can list all these different reasons you might want one thing or another, but just know the 401k providers are a great place to start. And then we can see how big your plan is. Do you want to do the whole thing? We'd have to, if it's all pre-tax, we'd have to pay taxes on all of it to move to a Roth. Does that make sense from a tax perspective? So we'll ask our tax advisor if it makes sense to do it in pieces or all at once. But I think the question first starts off with, let's call the 401k provider to see what options we have. Can we do it in plan, or do we have to move it to an IRA?
Thank you. A great next step. And if it is with Fidelity, as we've talked about, that's where we can kind of do so much more, which someone else may be able to do as well, but talk you through what may be best options for you given your situation. So Jasmine, now I'm going to come over to you. I think you probably get this question a lot. It is specific, but just to help provide Carolyn and the other people with guidance. My employer has a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k. Is it better to split my contributions 50-50 or 100% to traditional and or open up a separate Roth? I know there's a lot in that one.
There's a lot. I would say that it really just boils down to your specific situation. The first thing that I would want for you to understand is whether or not your employer will still match contributions if you are contributing Roth. And I would just go back to what Gina did mention earlier. I mean, when do you want to pay the taxes, either now or later? And ultimately, what I would suggest is that you meet with one of us just so that we can better understand your situation to see exactly what's going to be best for yourself. Because Lorna, what may be best for you may be completely different for Gina. So it's not a one size fits all.
Thank you. And again, easy to make a phone call and have us kind of guide you through what that help is. So a couple other questions coming in, and I know we went through these. So I am going to ask Lynette and many other people. And I think we might have covered some of this, but I think it's important to just cover it again because people are, you please talk about the employer 401k Roth IRA versus the Roth IRA. And how does that and it really dovetails, Jasmine, on what you just said. How does that affect my contribution and matching? And I know you might not be able to answer specifically because you don't know it, but just a reminder on the things that we need to think about and ask about to make sure that we're covered. So Jasmine, I may come back to you because I know you're in the workplace space on the regular.
Yes, so that's a great question. So sometimes there's a common misconception on the Roth 401k versus having a Roth IRA inside of the 401k. So keep in mind they're two separate accounts. Most employers will allow for you to contribute either pre-tax or Roth. Now, in terms of employer match, it is very plan specific. There are some plans that may not match contributions if you are contributing Roth. So you'll want to ensure that you're reaching out to the 401k provider just to ensure that you really understand the design of the plan, to ensure that it makes sense, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to get all of the free money from your employer when it comes to that company match. So never leave any free money on the table. So as far as whether or not you should do one or the other, it just depends on, a few different things that Gina did mention. So, whether or not you're willing to pay the taxes now or later. And then also if you believe that you may be in a higher tax bracket once you retire versus if you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. A lot of it is unknown. I mean, there are a lot of things that we don't know when it comes to taxes. The best thing that we can do is try to plan and ensure that we have diversity so that most importantly, you have more flexibility when it comes to creating a retirement income strategy. So that can get very specific per person and how you planned in the past, just to ensure that you have a really great future going forward when it comes to retirement planning. So that was a very long answer, but hopefully that makes sense in terms of trying to conceptualize what's the next best step.
Long, but helpful and clear. So thank you, Jasmine, and worthwhile. Gina, I'm going to throw one quick one at you, and I think we've got time for a few more. So Vern asked, do Roth conversions each have their own five-year time clock?
That's a great question. So it's 5 years from when you open up that Roth account. And so you want to open it and start funding it right away. It's 5 years from that time point, not every conversion that you do. So it's a great question. I think a big piece that we always look through is a lot of people oftentimes do these conversions in pieces. So it's just good to know. Maybe you start off and you don't have to do a huge mega conversion. Just start by doing it so it starts that 5-year time frame.
Awesome. Okay, Just Me asked, it is just me, and it's not me. If you have no earned income, can you add money to your Roth through your IRAs? Jasmine, I'm going to come over to you.
So you must have earned income in order to contribute directly to the Roth IRA.
But you can do that conversion, Lorna. So for people without earned income, if you have pre-tax money, could be a time to do a conversion. But yeah, you're correct, Jasmine, in saying that you need earned income to do a contribution.
A contribution, but you can do it through your IRA. So that's, I think, becomes really important. Okay, last one that I'm coming to, because I know we started at the top of the hour with a description of all the different type of Roths, but we've got some questions coming in. I wish I had this years ago around talking more about the Roth IRA for kids. So Gina, if I can come over to you, just kind of explaining what it is and why it may make sense, that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's a great, it didn't exist long ago. And so the same benefits as a Roth IRA, but it's geared towards children under age 18. So it's essentially a custodial account where an adult maintains the control of the account until the child is of age. So depending on where you live in the state, it could be 18 or 21. And the child has to have some earned income. Maybe they have summer jobs. So right now, in July, or maybe the kids are out there earning income. They have to have some earned income to be able to open that Roth IRA for kids, but they can contribute to those.
Awesome. And is there anything, Jasmine, you would add to that just to help us better understand it?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing to keep in mind is that with the Roth IRA for kids, it's the same contribution limit, but it's only up to the child's total earned income. So for 2024, once again, that limit to total of 7,000. So let's just say, for example, you have a daughter who earns $2,000 from dog walking. You can contribute up to the $2,000 per year, which it may be really hard to convince your son or your daughter to contribute to their Roth IRA for retirement, because maybe they want to go to the movies or buy video games, which is completely understandable. But one thing to keep in mind, it actually does not matter where the contributions are coming from. So you can make that as a gift from your child. You can have a gift from grandparents, other relatives. They can contribute as well, as long as it does not exceed your child's earned income. So that's one really neat thing about the Roth IRA for kids, for sure.
And the practicality of it, sorry, Lauren, I was just going to say is sometimes even parents try to encourage their kids, hey, I'll match what you do. So I get that you made 2,000. How about you contribute a portion and I'll help you contribute a portion. They can max out by that 2,000. Like Jasmine says, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but it could give us a little ability to help the kids. Hey, you save some, I'll help you save some too.
I think you've shared that tip with me before, and I would say have tried it. And Gina, I love that you, when I said I wish I had known about it, I'm pretty sure they were established when I was an adult and having children and could have taken more advantage. But again, didn't know
No one
everything.
talked about it.
There's a lot of stuff we don't talk about it. So having these conversations, I would say just one, for those who don't know about it, then they can take advantage of it. And it's okay if you're just hearing about it now. And for me, I always think about these conversations as the re-kick in the pants. To make sure that I'm doing it because I have some kiddos who are under the age of 18 and working, and helping them get a good start becomes so important. So thank you, by the way, for both of you. I appreciate it. So I think we have tried to cover as many questions as we can. I know that the poll came up, so we'd love for you to take that. Gina and Jasmine, thank you for such an educational and motivating conversation around the Roth. There is a lot to cover. It can be, I think, complex. And I think you both did such a wonderful job making it more easy to help us better understand what makes the most sense for us. But I also appreciate you both reinforcing that they should call, because everyone does have their own individual situation, and getting help and guidance to walk through those situations, I think, can be really helpful, because there are so many options, rules, and guidelines that we want to be paying attention to make sure that we make the right decision. So appreciate you joining us. For everybody who joined us today in the audience, hopefully today was helpful. What I'm most excited about is our upcoming schedule. So on August 7th, we are having a conversation on couples and money. I think it's relevant for everybody, but particularly for those who are in couples. We know that it's not always easy to have those conversations, make joint decisions, and financially plan together. And we're going to take some real life situations on how people who have worked through it, how they're doing it, and the guidance that we can provide. And then on August 22nd, we have planning for healthcare and long-term care and retirement. Two critically important topics that we're going to really spend some time on. Particularly, we've talked about, as women, we do potentially have longevity and higher healthcare costs, not just throughout life, but in retirement. And we're really just going to make sure that we have the options and can plan for the retirement that we want to have, so we can get some peace of mind. We're going to continue the conversation as we typically do on LinkedIn and Instagram. So definitely join us, share your questions, share your comments. I do want to bring up the slide that has the phone number. We did pin it in the chat, but always just a reminder for everybody to take advantage of calling. It is free. It is a benefit of your workplace plan, but you do not need to have a workplace relationship to call us. Fidelity is here to help everybody. That's the thousands of people across the country ready to do so. I call them the Ginas and the Jasmines. And last but not least, hopefully you are regular with our discussions, but if you are not and not part of the community, the QR code will take you in to join the community. You can get access to the calendar hold that will put you in our regular discussions, as well as then get tips and tools and resources straight to your inbox. Wow, I've got a lot to write down and take away from today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you so much.